AskReddit by War 3191. What's a movie that bombed at the box office but was actually good? Shawshank Redemption notoriously bombed at the box office and went on to receive critical acclaim. That was a monster year for film, so I'm not the least bit surprised. The Thing. One of my all-time favorite horror movies. I understand it's regularly taught in film schools, not just for the practical effects, but for the paranoia that was central to the story. You never knew, even at the very end, who was genuinely a human and who was an imitation. For the classic film it is, the 1971 Willy Wonka film didn't do well at the box office and earned lower than the budget was for it. The danger must be growing but the rowers keep on rowing. Clue. Given its current reputation, it's hard to believe it didn't make its budget back. This is partly because of the way it was marketed. Instead of the film having 3 endings that aired one after another, they released 3 separate cuts, each with its own ending. The shtick was that you wouldn't know which ending you were going to see, and that you could see it multiple times to try to see the other endings. Needless to say, audiences didn't find that prospect appealing. Matilda. Edit. Didn't expect this to blow up lol, thanks for the awards. No way did that really bomb. Tremors. Kevin Bacon acted his ass off in the movie and I loved it. The Princess Bride. They didn't know how to market it. Is it a fantasy film? Is it an action film? Is it a comedy? Is it for kids? All the reasons it became a classic are the same reasons they couldn't get people into the theaters to see it. Big Trouble in Little China. It's like I used to tell my wife, honey, I never drive faster than I can see, other than that it's all in the reflexes. There are hundreds, but bladder when it comes to my mind first. Bragging right now. Saw it in theater first release. So awesome. I don't know if it bombed, but Iron Giant was supposed to get a sequel and they decided not to do it because apparently the first movie didn't do well enough in theaters. I would have loved a sequel. I love Iron Giant, but I'm glad it didn't get a sequel. I think I'm happier imagining all of the Iron Giant's body parts scaring the bejesus out of passers-by as they crawl their ways toward the head. I like Mr. E-Men a lot. It didn't do well, but I thought it was hilarious. My brother and I quote it all the time. I must have ripped the Q section out of my dictionary, because I don't know the meaning of the word quit. Galaxy Quest. We saw it twice in the cinema. Went back to take other people to see it. Look around. Can you form some sort of rudimentary lathe? Big Trouble in Little China. The history of John Carpenter films. Dread. I want a sequel or TV show so bad. Office Space. Edit. Thank you, whoever you are, for the award. It's my first one. I was of working age, late teens, 20s, when this masterpiece came out, but I recently watched again as a 40-something and I can tell you that it's even more relevant to me than it was back in the day. It's almost so accurate that it oppressed me lol. Deleted. Did it bomb? It thought it was awesome. So I heard The Big Lebowski didn't do so well in theaters either, but that's just like my opinion. Not many movies spawned a religion. Treasure Planet. Contender for best animated movie ever. Up there with Iron Giant. Incidentally, Iron Giant also bombed at the box office despite widespread rave reviews. Even crazier, it later received a ton of awards for just how good a movie it is. But nobody saw it. It's been talked about for years as to why it failed, and there's lots of reasons why it may be the case. But I think Warner Bros. Then president said it best, when he was asked why they don't make a smarter family-friendly movie, and he said, "Because when we do, we get slaughtered." He has a point. Why bother making a smarter family-friendly movie if a movie like The Iron Giant just gets hammered, despite the fact it's an objectively great film? Constantine. I'd watch Peter Stormare read a phone book, but in Constantine, he outdid himself. One of the best portrayals of Lucifer ever. In the Mouth of Madness. Saw it on opening night. Freaky, my friends and I talked about it for days. I have yet to see the middle of that trilogy, Prince of Darkness. Even freakier, the creepy church is now in the middle of a normal suburban neighborhood. Megamind is the unfortunate better shadowed by Despicable Me. I don't think it necessarily bombed, but A Christmas Story had only modest success at the box office in 1983. Its popularity didn't really kick in until it was released on television. The other holiday movie, It's a Wonderful Life, was a box office flop when released in 1946. TV also cemented the popularity of this movie. Titan AE. Fun sci-fi story, great visuals, good voice acting. Fox marketed it poorly and it killed their animation studio when it bombed. It didn't just bomb, it's almost impossible to find anywhere on disc or streaming as well. I think Amazon finally added it a couple years back, but I'm not even sure if it's in HD. Which is a crying shame, because it looked amazing on the big screen as a kid and could do with a proper film transfer. Anastasia got the recognition it deserved, and I think the Broadway adaptation almost beats it somehow. A shame Titan AE hasn't gotten any post-box love. No real plot, but I still love Fantasia. One of my absolute favorites, and my daughters, too. Wish they would have done the original idea to release a new one every few years. The celebrity bits in Fantasia 2000 are annoying and some of the pieces don't really work for me, but there are some real lovely pieces in that one, too. Blade Runner. Both bladder and movies. Hook. It flopped at the box office and has 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I will always love that movie. The Hoffman and Hoskins dialogue is so fucking great. Hear me, men. For reasons of good form, I have decided that the so-called Pan will return in 3 days to commit the arbitrament of the sword. Smee. Translate. In 3 days, we're gonna have a war. A battle between good and evil to the death. Death to Smoochie. It's one of my favorite dark comedies ever conceived. It didn't do well at the box office and was panned by critics despite having an extraordinary cast: Ed Norton, Robin Williams, Jon Stewart, Danny DeVito, Catherine Keener, Harvey Fierstein, Danny Woodburn, and Michael Rispoli. I think it's absolutely brilliant and everyone delivers an incredible performance, especially Ed Norton and Robin Williams. Never understood why it did poorly. It was a fantastic movie with an equally fantastic cast. Idiocracy. The 13th Warrior. Yeah, it bombed because they put to a test screening and people hated it, so they got all the actors and film crew back, remade all of the sets and costumes, rewrote the script to give us the movie that is out now, but they didn't tell any of the public. So when people heard about the test screening and how bad that version was, no one went to go see it, so they made 2 movies for one. But because of not telling the audience about the changes they were making, people just assumed it was going to be bad. From the sounds of it, the one shown in the test screening was just awful and the worst movie ever made. The version that came out in theaters though was good. I'll give you 2. Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron and The Road to El Dorado. My crew was as carefully chosen as the disciples of Christ, and I will not tolerate stowaways. You will be flogged, and when we put into Cuba to resupply, God willing you will be flogged some more. And then enslaved to the sugar plantations for the rest of your miserable lives. To the brig. Alright, Cuba.